Are the biggest stocks in your portfolio about to turn against you? With May just around the corner, it's time to find out whether it is time to sell in May and go away or hold strong. Today we dive into the 7 biggest names on the ASX market and we'll reveal which ones are flashing sell now and which ones still have the firepower left in the tank. This isn't just a market update, it's your tactical playbook. You'll discover where the market's really headed next and how to trade your top stocks with confidence and precision. Welcome to Wealth Within's Hot Stock Tips. With over 2 decades of experience training over 30,000 traders, we bring you what actually works in the stock market. Joining me today is Wealth Within analyst Pedro Banales, and I'm senior analyst Philip Tortevsky. So let's dive straight in, Pedro.
Phil.
How are you?
Yeah, good. A bit of more stabilisation in the market. So yeah, I can relax for a bit.
Now, we're going to do something very exciting today. As mentioned, we're going to cover the 7 biggest stocks to address that issue of whether it is time to sell in May. I mean, I think this is one of the more important videos that we have done. So let's get straight to it. I want to bring up a seasonality chart first of the All Ords Index. Now, what you're seeing here, if you're seeing it for the first time, is basically a chart with over 40 years of data. You can see from 1983 to 2025, showing you the average monthly performance of each of the months of the year on our index. And you'll see why that common saying has been around forever, which is sell in May and go away, is because generally speaking, the market pulls away in May and June.
Yep.
So now is the perfect time to be discussing the biggest 7 stocks to find out whether it really is time to be selling in May and going away, because that's obviously going to impact a lot of your portfolios out there, or whether it is time to hold and even maybe buy.
Now, this isn't a rule that you should generally just follow blindly and just sell in May, and that's exactly what we're going to show, that the technicals will actually let us know whether to sell or not.
Yeah.
But it's good to know this data anyway.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, so let's get into it. First up is CBA. Now, this one here, we've got the monthly and weekly charts. Pedro, obviously a stock that one of the best performers on our market, no surprise. And it's very good we're looking at these charts today because we're looking at them in hindsight post Trump mania. I mean, sure, news can come out tomorrow with something crazy, but right now it's a bit calmed down. And look at the way CBA reversed from that recent news of the tariff pause. I mean, it reversed up so strong, it's almost clawed back all the falls it's had since February 2021. So this is very strong. Now, if you had to ask me the question, is this one to sell in May? There isn't anything yet that is pointing to that direction for me.
Yep.
I will draw one line here which may change your view. And the fact that it's actually, for some reason, it's not wanting me to click on this button through here. There we go. But I'll apply a steeper trend line. Now, the market was moving to this steeper gradient through there. And what's quite interesting, you can see since it fell away through the steeper gradient, it's come back to the longer term gradient that it started back in 2023, found a rise. These 3 arrows here are what's important to me. Failed to get above 161, failed a second time, third time it got through, but look at the way, even though it poked its head through, again, fell all the way back down. To me, I'm counting that as 3 fails at 161. We're coming to that level now. If we struggle under this trend line here and fail 161, then you need to be asking some serious questions if you're a short-term player.
Yep.
If you're a long-term player, I think you can't make any decisions about CBA in terms of getting rid of it until it gets through this trend line here, which is around under 145. So for me, mate, I don't know, it looks good for CBA.
Yeah, I'd say if you're holding it, just stick with it. And what I do like is that the volume is actually increasing as this stock is moving up. And like you've said, it's pretty much back to the all-time high levels where it started. This reversal happened in February. Yep, there was already talks about the Trump tariffs, but it could be just that this level had that effect. As you mentioned, it did fail to break above it multiple times. Long term, hold. I'd say short term, and probably can't justify an entry. And I wouldn't be selling it either short term.
Yeah. And are you kind of in agreement as well, or do you have a different view in terms of what you want to see with this one moving forward about whether May would present an opportunity to sell? Is it holding or breaking through that trend line that we do have there, or are you seeing something else?
Well, I think that if you were going to sell, the opportunity to sell is already gone. The opportunity to sell was probably around here. And if you didn't take it, well, good on you, because now you're back up to those levels. At the moment, I'm with you. I don't see any reason to sell this stock.
Yep, fantastic. All right, well, let's move on to the next stock, which is another huge market player on our market. So let's get onto the screen there, and that is BHP. This one here, very different looking to CBA. And, you know, if you're asking the question, is it time to sell in May? Well, potentially I'll reword that question and say, can this stock continue to fall in May? And to me, the answer is quite possibly.
Yep.
There is a very real possibility it can. Clearly, there was a huge level of support at $36. You can see in the past how it's supported it. It's broken through that now, and currently we are still closing below it. So in April, if we do close below this $36, I would argue there is potential in May for us to get down to $31. In terms of trend, there's nothing I'm seeing, no higher highs, no higher bases, no, I guess, flush outs or anything like that just yet to tell me that we could potentially be coming into a reversal anytime soon. Now, I just want to also make it clear that that could change in a couple of weeks. So
yeah,
right now, we're talking about what we're seeing right now, and the safe play moving forward. If you are holding this stock, I mean, if you're holding it from these levels, you've had so many opportunities, you shouldn't be in this now.
Yeah.
You should be looking for an opportunity to get in, not still holding if you're more of that medium-term player. And I would argue even long-term, you know, even if you were a long-term buy and holder of BHP, you've had a very clear line to get out. And look at that, you're getting at around 45, the highest 50. Right near the top would have been the opportune time to get in, especially when it's come back down and doing one of those where it tests the underside of the trend line, exactly what I spoke about with CBA earlier. So for me, you've had plenty of opportunities to get out. If you're still holding, well, potentially support at around $31. Can I see it falling further in May? Yes. If it does reverse, unless it gets through these trend lines through here, then for me, it's still bearish.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's pointing down. There's nothing to tell us that it is going up. So if you're holding it at the moment, I think that you have to have made a clear decision. You know, like you said, you've outlined this level here, that it has fallen. We're pretty much in free fall. You know, this is just a watch for me. I think when it does turn, though, at around that $32 level, I'll be watching it like a hawk. So, I mean, like you said, there was already chances for you to sell it a long time ago. Yeah, this is just a hold for me.
Yeah, I think more from the perspective of the market, if BHP does, you know, the big players, BHP and the big banks, if they look bearish, and that's another point to keep in mind, what we want to get out of this today is if you're looking at all these, the big seven, they're going to drive the market. So if they do look bearish, then there is a very real possibility that we are going to move more bearish than bullish over the short to medium term. But right now, CBA no, and BHP, there is quite a good possibility that it could keep falling over the next month. Anyway, let's get into the next one, Pedro, mate.
Yeah, right. So CSL is next. And this one is another one that's looking a little bit bearish, right? So we've got this very strong support level that it has found like as a springboard many times in the past. We've got that 230, 240 level. It hasn't closed below it. That's promising. So it could actually be about to reverse. However, if it's anything like ResMed, and ResMed looked a lot like this one, then we could be falling down to that $170 level. Yeah,
look, for me, I'm going to, you know, maybe call it a little different. I'm not looking at this from a bearish, I don't think it's as bearish as like what we saw with BHP, and purely from the fact that the way this is unfolding. This pattern alone, price pattern here, and if I can, for some reason, this mouse is playing funny games with me today, but when you look at the bigger picture of CSL and then you go and look at what happened with BHP, BHP was trending down. This to me is accumulating sideways. Now it could be near a market top and break to the downside, but law of probabilities, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 times where it's tested $240 and held. So this is more of a sideways accumulation type pattern, which we saw somewhere around 2008. Following a strong run upwards in terms of trend. I wouldn't be calling this as bearish as what I think with BHP, but you know, if we fail to hold these levels here, 241, There is the very real possibility it could fall further. Just bear in mind, each time it's taken out the previous low, it's basically reversed. So this previous low here was at 228, I believe, 65. And this month we've gone 228.61. So we've just managed to claw it down. Going by history, I think whilst we're stuck in this range-bound market for CSL, I would be more bullish on this scenario moving into May. And, if we zoom in on this weekly chart here, obviously like the rest of the market, we're coming into a low and reversed, and there's a big chunk of volume coming in, fresh volume. So I think a cautious approach is probably the best port of call if you're a more medium to long-term investor. If you're a short-term player that likes to play reversals, well then you need to be watching this.
I would add to that caution because Trump is coming out with some pharmaceutical tariffs pretty soon.
Yes.
And this could affect this stock. So be watching that like a hawk. Watch the chart, obviously. But when that comes out, that's going to affect this stock. But definitely, I agree. From a short-term perspective, it should bounce. But we do have the Trump factor that we can't deny.
Yeah. All right, interesting. So 2 positives, 1 negative so far. Next one.
All right, so next up we have Westpac. So Westpac I actually do like. It actually reversed from that $28 level quite nicely. We can see that it did break that uptrend line, but it now looks like it's reversing quite nicely and it's pointing to the upside. We don't have much volume coming back into it. So the down move, whilst it does look like it has stopped, and we can see that by the nature that it has fallen. So usually we see these corrective type patterns that happen in a zigzag motion, and then we get the next run up. So from that point, I do like it from a pattern perspective, and we are seeing that bar closing to the high. Now, whether it has stopped falling or not will depend on whether that $28 level will hold. If that $28 level doesn't hold, then I'll be changing my mind. But for now, we've got a lot of price agreement around there. Multiple times it's found resistance and support around there. So it's holding up nicely. And I think that a retest of that $35 level is on the cards.
Yeah, look, I have to agree about the fact that it could get up to that $35 level over the next month or so, or couple of months. But what if it does get to that 35 level? To me, the real question mark is there. You can see that, we've marked that line since 2013. Really, it's failed to get through there, and it's one of the banks that hasn't performed like your CBAs. And on the weekly chart, I just want to bring up, if we can go back to that weekly chart. To me, the part that I guess paints the picture that I am a little bit more on the, I guess, bearish side with Westpac, and I just want to bring up this weekly for you. And that is because unlike CBA, where it managed to find support on a shallower trend line, this hasn't been the case. If I was to apply one of those, the next level of gradient in terms of trend line, you can see that it's quite a way away. And right now, the fact that the longer we hold under here, the less confident I am of further rises on Westpac in the short term. We could in fact, given if this is a major low, we could in fact find some choppy price action like we saw around through this period, or we might get quite volatile but then go back and test it. Around significant lows, it's never really clean price action. And so right now, as long as we're holding under this trend line, I'm cautious. Can the market continue to go south for Westpac in May? Yeah, there's a higher probability of that for me than not, especially if we cannot take out the 32.19 high.
Yep, strong level, that one.
We don't get through this 32.19 high in the short term, well then that smells weakness to me, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it actually broke that previous low as well isn't promising. However, it didn't close below it. So yeah, it's kind of in no man's land at the moment, isn't it? And those two levels are going to be the clear ones to watch, 29 and 31.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, now on that point, I've got Dale's book here, How to Beat the Managed Funds by 20%, a beautiful introduction to a lot of the stuff we're doing here, a lot of the techniques like the trend lines and, looking at the portfolio. You'll find some fantastic information there. All you have to do is pay the shipping. It's absolutely free. And if you want to step up your game even further and get the professional standard of education, well, we do have a government accredited course at Wealth Within. So go and check out the website or give the office a ring on 0392909999 to really get into depth to do the things we do on this show here and more. So getting back to the charts right now, we do have the next one, which is NAB. Again, another bank. Now, quite interesting, NAB, unlike CBA, and I'll bring that up again. Obviously there is, let's start off on the weekly chart here and switch things up. But, you know, we've got basically the trend line that it has broken through in terms of, this one's actually broken through 2 gradients. So it's something to keep in mind. That was the sharpest trend line that we broke through. We're now holding above the second most significant rate of rise. And if we apply that, we're sitting on the 3rd rate of rise. So right now, you know, if we were to continue to hold this momentum line, you would argue short-term bullishness, okay. If we were to hold through here, medium-term maybe, potentially now we're coming into a level, again, where we're going to find a significant low.
Yep.
And to find that significant low, like through periods through here, we're going to see price action be a bit choppy and not basically move like it does in trend with that full, you know, power in terms of higher highs and higher lows. We're not seeing any of that just yet. So if I apply that with this trend arrow through here, I'll show you what I mean. If we are clearly in trend or looking bullish, we're going to be seeing things like this. Now, you look at that chart now, you're not seeing any of that. In fact, what we're seeing are moves like this so far, albeit we are respecting and holding this previous low and we've moved into a support line. So I'm going to go 50-50 on this one. If you're holding this in your portfolio, I wouldn't be selling it at these levels.
Yep.
That's one thing to say, because it's also coming to the natural level of support and resistance here, which has been quite important for the stock, and that's through here. It's not a sell at around $31, but boy, if we start to break $31 and this trend line through here, and I'll visually show you what that looks like, if we start to move and start to break and close below these levels, then I think you need to really consider National Australia Bank in terms of protecting the position, if you are, or limiting the downside potential.
Yep. Yeah, look, I actually quite like this one. I think that it has found its low. And I would say that the nature of the fall, what's happened is much like what happened in previous falls. We've got that zigzag type movement that, you know, that it falls at and then continues its rise. So we've got the same type of pattern back here as well, where it falls, does a zigzag, and then you know, calls out. That one got away from me, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think that it is doing a very similar type zigzag pattern, and you know that previous support level resistance that you've marked and that, you know, that trend line is providing strong support for it at the moment. I think that a move up to the $40 level is on the cards.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Let's move on to the next one now, which is Wesfarmers. Now, another stock which, and this is the beautiful thing about looking at different time frames when you're dealing with price action, because you can get 2 slightly different views on a stock. And what do I mean by that? This is the big term picture monthly. You can see how it's come back and hit this momentum line almost exactly and reversed up with strong buying. So from the long-term perspective, this is still a hold.
Yeah.
If you're you know, in the stock. From a shorter to medium-term perspective, well, we're coming up to a crux point here, and that is it's broken through the, I guess, trend line that it's been respecting since 2023, and it is starting to fail under here ever so slightly. Of course, the bars here are speaking very bullish things. You can see the closes are generally higher than the opens, and that is a bullish sign, especially with what we saw in April. Right now, we're trying to climb. If we can hold above this momentum line, take out this high, hold strongly, then sure, we're going to take out the all-time high.
Yeah.
If we start to fail here, then I think potentially, if it's a question of trying to lock in profits for the short to medium term, there's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Long term, if you're looking to see whether this one is a potential sell, then I would argue anything below this trend line would be the safer way to play, to give it enough room to at least move before you got too concerned. So how does this look in May? Well, I think if it keeps going the way it's going, we're going to go back to that all-time high.
Yeah.
If we fail through here, and start reversing back down and take out these lows, well, I think May's going to be quite bearish.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a sad May. I think that it's trading at the top of the range at the moment, and I do agree that for now it's looking quite bullish. You know, we've got that very strong level there at around $68, and then we've got a very strong resistance level, say anywhere between, I mean, this isn't going to be exact, anywhere between 77 all the way up to that $80. So it's trading at the top of the range. Whether there's an opportunity right now, you know, I doubt it. But like you said, if you're holding it, I'd just be holding on to it. If you do see it trade below that $68 level, well, we've got multiple indicators to say that, you know, you should be out of this stock. It's broken that momentum line. It's broken this support level, and we could be trading back down, you know, to around that $60 level where we found multiple times that kind of support and resistance. And, you know, anywhere between there, I'm kind of just being a little bit broad. And we do have a previous, you know, all-time high around that level as well to help us out. So, you know, definitely not be selling in May for this one.
Yeah, and it's starting to get a bit choppy in terms of the price action. I mean, just looking at it on the weekly chart, you can clearly see nice trend, strong trend, and look how it's slowly but surely trying to find new highs, but extending much less.
Yep.
And it's starting to get that sidewaysy type move. And if you are a student of ours, then what I'm about to draw is something that you would already know in markets, but these kinds of things, if they do happen, spell trouble. So I'll let you ponder on that. But anyway, there's a few technical things lining up for this to say, hey, there could be patterns to say this could get bearish real soon.
Yeah, definitely. Keep an eye on those patterns for sure.
All right. Well, last but not least is ANZ, another bank. And again, to me, this one here, like CBA, finding support on the longest term trend line. It's not confirmed at all just yet because we're still in April, and I mean, there's 2 weeks to go before the end of April. But right now we're holding, and that's the big kicker for me. You can see that since basically 2023, and I mean, you could even push this on up higher and it's still kind of respected that dating back. I mean, that's obviously a bit tight there, but it gives you an example of what happens is of how much you can save when you get out of the market, instead of riding an extra 10, 15, 20% down, depending on when you got in, of course. But since 2023, which is, where are we there? Yeah, 22 actually, this market has respected this longer term gradient of rise, and it's still respecting it now. My only concern with ANZ, it's had a lot of attempts to get through $31 since 2017. And really, you know, 1 try, 2, 3, 4, 5 tries to get above 31, failed.
Yeah, to me, this looks the most bearish out of the banks, to be honest. You know, I must agree. And, you know, going back to your point earlier about that pattern, well, you want to see what happens when that pattern unfolds, and you know you can see it right here. You know that it's actually confirmed that pattern that you were talking about there. So the fact that it actually found support around that momentum line is the only thing that's keeping it up at the moment and keeping my my thoughts that it could reverse, but it's actually looking like it could come down to the $25 level.
Now, this is a good conversation because when you look at it like this, even though potentially bigger picture, the stock, you know, let's just say has a bearish overtone or tinge to when we're looking at it, I would still argue short-term players at these levels, there's an opportunity to make money on the way up. And that's the thing that you do really need to, one, determine what type of trader or time frame you're going to trade.
Yep.
And then once you determine that time frame, that'll dictate to how you're going to get in and out and what levels you're looking at in terms of what kind of play you want out of the stock. So let's just go back to that chart.
And what time frame you want to be looking at, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, there'll be short-term traders watching this and saying, well, actually, no, I like it here. And traders that like to trade off reversals.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. But as long as you accept the risk and as long as you know you accept the levels of where this may get to. And I would argue anything above $30, if you're looking for more than that in terms of short term, well, dream again, because you might not get that. Look, it could do it, but with what it's done in history, you know, expect the worst and Hope
for the best.
for the best, but expect the worst.
Yep.
And if your plan is for the worst, then you'll always be around the marks. If it goes better, then hey, great. But
Yep.
$30 if you're short term, $29, that's where I would be looking. If you can eke out a return from there to there, good luck. If you're more medium term, I think the risk right now is that this stock either goes sideways around these levels or moves into basically, as Pedro mentioned before, if I can get this on, because right now, what are we seeing? What type of market structure? Well, it's bearish.
Yeah.
We're seeing that. You don't see this in uptrends. You see this in downtrends.
Yeah.
And so right now, unless that changes, we start to make higher bases. For a more medium-term picture, I don't like it until it gets above $30. So to answer the question, if you're still holding long-term, fine, it's a hold. If it gets below these $26 levels, then I'd be concerned.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you wouldn't be selling it just yet. We want to see a little bit more confirmation of that fall.
Well, selling depends on when you buy, and we're not going to get into all of that.
Yeah,
Everybody's got
it's
a
too-
different buy price.
Yeah.
But we're just saying where it is now, what are the chances of it going up or down?
Oh, down, exactly. And I would say that the chances of it going down are more likely than the chances of it going up. And
Right.
we'll just go back to the chart and just have a quick look at that long-term momentum. It did trade below it, and it actually closed below it. It is popping its head back up, but this is a very dangerous situation for this stock. So we still got to prove itself a little bit more.
Yeah, all right. So now let's answer the question.
Yeah.
Sell in May or not?
Oh, go away.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few of those that look a little bit bearish.
Yeah.
There's a few that look nice. Obviously, it's not a blanket rule. Always stick to the chart. So I would say sell in May is just rubbish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from my perspective anyway, I'll say from what we saw there, potentially looks like that the market could, find another leg down based on the big 7 players in May. And as Pedro said, the market is not every stock. So watch every stock in isolation, because even there were a few there that looked like they were about to spring up for big runs. And a few banks were holding on those major trend lines. So, we could get actually big reversals up from here as well. So keep all of that in mind. Now, if you want more hot stock tips, check out our video, ASX 200, Bitcoin and the AUD. Which one recovers first?